The Black Souls gang leader, along with 5 other managers, the leaders of a gang that the Cook County State's attorney says wreaked havoc and terror in Chicago's West Garfield Park neighborhood. Black Souls protected their territory by murdering, kidnapping, beating, and intimidating witnesses. Fox says they controlled heroin and cocaine sales for 15 years.
In today's video, we're delving into the gritty history of one of Chicago's gangs, the New Life Black Souls, also known as NLBS, or just the Black Souls Gang. And from their rise to power in the 1990s under the leadership of Dwayne Lemon and Kevin Mitchell, to their dramatic downfall involving murders, drug operations, and federal investigations. In this video, we'll explore the intricate hierarchy of the gang, the brutal enforcement tactics they employed, and the significant role of key members like Cornel Dawson, Duavon Spears, and Teron Odum. We'll also discuss the pivotal events, such as the murders of Claude Snulligan, Johnny Taylor, Charles Watson, and Earnest Keys that marked their violent history and eventual unraveling. Our story will include testimonies from former gang members, undercover operations, and the wiretaps that ultimately brought this criminal enterprise to its knees. In the streets of Chicago in the 1990s, Dwayne Lemon and Kevin Mitchell reigned supreme as the leaders of a gang known as the Impression Black Souls. Their territory spanned from Pulaski Road to Keeler Avenue, and from Madison Street down to the Eisenhower Expressway, where drug sales fueled their rise to power. In the mid-1990s, a dispute caused the fracture of the Impression Black Souls, leading to the birth of a new gang, which was known as the New Life Black Souls. Leading this breakaway gang was none other than Dwayne Lemon, who took the reins as their first leader. However, his reign was tragically cut short in 1999 when he was murdered in a brutal territory dispute with the Impression Black Souls. In the wake of his death, Cornel Dawson, Lemon's nephew, became the new leader. He quickly stepped up to fill his uncle's shoes. Under Dawson's leadership, the New Life Black Souls relied on robbery, kidnapping, extortion, and drug sales to make money. The hierarchy of the NLBS was the following. At the top are the suppliers, those who provide the bulk of the drugs, and the overseers who run the drug operation. Below them, managers ensure that the street-level dealers are following orders and making sales. Then there are the pack runners, tasked with delivering the drugs to street-level dealers, who in turn sell the drugs to the customers. Duavon Spears, Cornel Dawson, Antoine Davis, Clifton Lemon, Teron Odum, and Ulysses Polk held high ranks in the gang and were key players in the gang's hierarchy. Dawson held the title of leader back in the early 2000s, calling the shots and enforcing the rules within the gang. Respect was important, with everyone addressing Dawson as chief. As the chief, Dawson always took a share of the profits from drug sales. Dawson's authority extended far and wide, with everyone in the gang answering directly to him. Only the elite few, the higher-ups, had the privilege of direct communication with Dawson. Odum was second in command to Dawson. Dawson and Odum would, quote, oversee the little guys out there selling drugs and make sure the block was getting ran like it was supposed to get ran, unquote. Polk was a standout figure, known for his control over the 4,100 block of Wilcox Street as one of the top runners for the Black Souls, and Spears was a pack runner in the same block. Davis was also a top pack runner at Monroe and Pulaski. Lemon held a managerial role within the group, and he had ties to the Black Souls through his brother, former Chief Dwayne Lemon. Dawson and Polk are also half-brothers. It was a well-organized system where runners received their drugs from Dawson, then passed them on to the sellers. The proceeds would circle back up the chain, ultimately reaching Dawson's hands.
Committing an execution-style murder in broad daylight of a neighborhood man who was brave enough to report them.
Claude Snulligan had complained about the NLBS selling drugs outside his home on the 4,000 block of West Monroe Street. The tensions reached a boiling point on April 3, 2012, as Odum and 2 men confronted Snulligan at his doorstep, accusing him of calling the police on them. Odum demanded retribution from Snulligan by trying to coerce him into becoming a drug dealer for the gang. When Snulligan refused to comply, the situation took a violent turn. Odum and his associates resorted to physical violence, assaulting Snulligan with a handgun and robbing him. The escalation continued as they attempted to force Snulligan into a car trunk, but Snulligan resisted this abduction attempt. After Odum's arrest for the violent attack, Dawson, whom Snulligan singled out as the NLBS ringleader, proposed returning Snulligan's stolen belongings, offering $3,000 in compensation and pledging to leave him alone if Snulligan agreed not to cooperate in the case against Odum. Around the same time, Davis reached out to Snulligan with a different tactic. He urged Snulligan to meet with Odum's lawyer and sign a sworn statement retracting his accusations against Odum. But Snulligan refused both Dawson's proposal and the pressure from Davis. Instead, he reported this to the authorities. On October 20th, 2012, a man named Lawrence Hale vividly recounted his experience at a cell phone store near Baba's Restaurant on the intersection of Madison Street and Pulaski Road. Baba's Restaurant was a popular NLBS hangout and meeting place. While Hale chatted with some friends in the parking lot, Snulligan went inside the store. Suddenly, Hale heard a gunshot, prompting Hale's attention towards Snulligan, who fell to the ground. In a split second, Hale caught a glimpse of the assailant fleeing the scene behind Snulligan, but could not see his face. Despite trying to identify the shooter, all Hale could see was a black man with dreadlocks wearing a gray hoodie with the hood concealing his face. The gunshot caught the attention of a man called Leary's Brown, who then walked over to the scene. He found Snulligan shot in the head. Detective Greg Swiderek recounted an interview with Brown on March 1, 2013. In the interview, Brown revealed that he had seen Spears come out of an alley off Madison Street and shoot Snulligan in the back of the head. Spears was wearing a gray hoodie, which he used to conceal his identity by covering his face right before pulling the trigger. Subsequently, Spears fled southbound on Pulaski Road toward Monroe Street. During an interview with Assistant State Attorney Kremen on March 3, 2013, Brown provided a written statement. In his statement, Brown described the moment Spears came out from the alley just as Snulligan was leaving the cell phone store. He was in a gray hoodie and had a ponytail and dreads. Spears concealed his identity by covering his face with the hood right before shooting Snulligan in the back of the head, and then ran southbound on Pulaski Road. However, during the trial, Brown adamantly denied witnessing the shooting or telling the authorities that Spears was the shooter. Alex Williams was a paid confidential informant. He testified about his friendship with Dawson back in 1994 when they first met at the Cook County Jail. Dawson was not a high-ranking member of the Black Souls at the time. Following Williams' release from prison in 2002, he reconnected with Dawson, who had reached the position of chief within the newly formed New Life Black Souls gang. Under Dawson's leadership, Williams was introduced to other NLBS members, including Odum, Davis, Polk, and Lemon. During his testimony, Williams stated that he was looking for a parking spot near Baba's Restaurant at the time of Snulligan's murder. As Williams drove around in his car, he couldn't help but notice several members of the NLBS, including Spears, Davis, and Polk, present in the area. To corroborate his account, Williams identified all three individuals in the security footage shown in court, placing them in the parking lot on the day of the crime. On November 28, 2012, Williams secretly recorded a conversation with Dawson. During their discussion, Williams casually dropped Spears' name and cryptically mentioned being on Madison with eyes on the entire scene. Dawson then recounted details about the incident, mentioning how Snulligan was accusing Odum of beating him with a pistol. Dawson went on to mention a visit to a lawyer's office where he was presented with evidence in the form of hospital pictures showcasing Snulligan's injuries. He had black eyes and a neck brace on. Dawson then elaborated on the mounting charges against Odum, including battery, kidnapping, and attempted kidnapping. Dawson then enthusiastically said that Odum was feeling good, implying that he was relieved about avoiding charges now that Snulligan is dead. Dawson said, quote, "It's all done now. But come on, man, he should have known better," unquote. That Snulligan shouldn't have betrayed Odum by cooperating with authorities. Later on, Dawson revealed his attempts to convince Snulligan not to implicate Odum by saying that he offered him $4,000 and asked him to sign some papers. Williams explained during his testimony that he interpreted Dawson's words as a request for Snulligan to provide a written statement to support Odum's defense. Dawson then explains that Snulligan turned down the offer and disappeared for a few months. But then, Dawson saw Snulligan again and instructed his brother to, quote, "Bring him the heat." Williams revealed in his testimony that Dawson was requesting Polk to provide him with a gun for retribution against Snulligan. Dawson and Polk then trailed Snulligan, but soon spotted police nearby, leading Dawson to question if Snulligan was trying to set them up, and questioning why he would even show up in their neighborhood at this time. On that very day, Williams secretly recorded another conversation between himself and Polk. During their exchange, Williams mentions Spears, to which Polk reveals he was, quote, right there when that shit went down, unquote. Williams adds that it all happened real quick. Polk's response was, that's just how things roll, man, which led Williams to believe that Snulligan's killing was payback for informing on Odum. During a third recorded conversation on December 12, 2012, Williams shares with Davis that he spotted him, Polk, Spears, and fellow NLBS members in the area prior to Snulligan's murder. To this, Davis casually remarks that they were all at work, hinting at their involvement in orchestrating the shooting. Moreover, Davis praises Spears as a 2-stars homie for his deeds, indicating to Williams that Spears had done a good job by killing Snulligan. On the night of January 9, 2013, Johnny Taylor, a young and talented aspiring rapper who was about to sign a record deal with Atlanta Records, met his untimely end at the hands of unknown assailants from the NLBS. The state suggested that Taylor was affiliated with the New Breed Street gang, and it was assumed that Taylor's death was payback for the fatal shooting of Darvell Brown, who was killed while selling drugs for the NLBS. One witness, Marquette Robinson, stated that he crossed paths with Taylor near an alley on South Springfield Avenue. Little did he know that their brief exchange would be the last time he saw Taylor alive. Later, Robinson heard multiple gunshots, which caused him to run away to safety. After Robinson returned, he saw that Taylor had been shot. Detective Daniel Jensen took charge of the investigation into Taylor's tragic death. While reviewing surveillance footage from a nearby building, Detective Jensen hit a roadblock as the cameras failed to capture the moment of the shooting. The police were unable to identify any individuals in the videos but still retained the footage for further analysis. In another key development, Williams, the paid confidential informant, secretly recorded a conversation he had with Dawson and Davis on the day after Taylor's murder. In the recording, Davis confides in Dawson about the victim's identity, revealing that he was an up-and-coming rapper, set to receive a substantial signing bonus of $75,000 the following day. Davis goes on to share that his girlfriend informed him about the police confiscating the surveillance tapes. According to Davis, law enforcement suspected that the perpetrators believed Taylor already possessed the bonus check, leading to a tragic chain of events. Davis explains that the surveillance footage failed to reveal the faces of the shooters as they entered the alley due to their disguises with hoodies. However, he notes that the front cameras captured clear images of the shooters as they left the area. Davis speculates that the police may enhance the footage to identify the shooters. In response, Dawson advises Davis to urge them to lie low while the police investigated the shooting. During a subsequent conversation recorded by Williams approximately a week later on January 18, 2013, Davis mentions the funeral of Taylor. Dawson expresses disbelief at the audacity of those attending the funeral. The rest of the conversation involves discussing the disturbing tactic of attending the funeral so the family or the cops don't get suspicious. Williams testified that they were talking about, quote, killing somebody and showing up at their funeral and acting like you ain't had shit to do with it. Jubali Stokes and Charles Watson were involved in drug dealing under the direction of Stokes' uncle, William Chuck Redfield, a member of NLBS. In June 2002, Redfield called Stokes and Watson to his residence and accused them of stealing money and drugs from the gang. Subsequently, Redfield, along with 2 accomplices, subjected Stokes and Watson to physical assault using sticks, bound them with duct tape, and forcibly transported them in a van to an abandoned building located at Monroe Street and Pulaski Road. Donald Hughes, an NLBS member, was selling heroin on the street for the gang. He noticed Redfield's van arriving and saw Redfield engaging in a conversation with Dawson and Lemon before leaving. Following Redfield's exit, Dawson directed Hughes to retrieve drugs concealed in an abandoned building. Hughes complied, moving the drugs to a vacant lot across the street. Subsequently, upon Redfield's return to the area later, Stokes was forcefully taken out of a van and into the building by Redfield and others. Hughes trailed them inside, where he saw Dawson and Lemon waiting in the basement. Upon arrival at the building, Stokes was taken to the basement, where he saw Dawson and Lemon waiting for him. Stokes also saw Redfield and Hughes in the basement. Meanwhile, Watson was brought to the upper level for questioning, during which Stokes could hear his screams of distress. Eventually, Stokes was released as it became clear that he was not involved in the alleged theft. Later, Dawson and Lemon handed Hughes a shovel and instructed him to help a man named Shaw in digging a hole next to the abandoned building. Hughes and Shaw began digging but stopped after they heard someone warning them that the police had arrived. Upon returning to the site later, Hughes saw Redfield, Shaw, and another individual covering a body placed within the hole with dirt. Stokes, gravely injured, emerged from the basement of the abandoned building and was helped by Hughes, who transported him to the hospital. Subsequently, a cadaver dog located Watson's body buried near the same building. Hughes was apprehended and pleaded guilty to concealing a homicide. In testimony, retired Detective Patrick O'Donovan recounted his involvement in investigating Snulligan's murder in October 2012. Assigned to monitor a wiretap placed in Dawson's van, Detective O'Donovan, on June 3, 2013, spotted the van while patrolling Monroe Street and Pulaski Road. He decided to initiate contact by stopping the van, a tactic known as tickling the wire, to start potential conversations. During the stop, Detective O'Donovan questioned Dawson about his connection to the buried body on Monroe Street, to which Dawson did not give a direct answer, and he sort of laughed and played along. Following the encounter, Dawson was overheard on the wiretap referencing Charles. His exact words were, "He's talking about Charles, ain't he?" In 2002, Orlando Benneman joined the NLBS when he was still a teenager, and he was dealing drugs for the NLBS and protecting senior members like Dawson, Odum, and Lemon. On July 25, 2003, Benneman attended a gang meeting in Garfield Park alongside Dawson, Odum, and Davis. Following the meeting, Benneman accompanied Dawson and Odum back to NLBS territory. During the journey, Dawson identified a Chevy Impala, allegedly driven by Block, a member of a rival gang. The Impala quickly sped away. Dawson then instructed Benneman to take action if the Impala returned, interpreted by Benneman as an order to kill the driver. Benneman positioned himself at the intersection of Pulaski Road and Monroe Street, ready for the Impala's return. When the vehicle reappeared, Dawson signaled to Benneman that it was the target. Benneman fatally shot the driver at a stop sign using a gun provided by Dawson. Dawson threatened Benneman and his family should he talk to the police about the incident. Subsequent investigations revealed the driver as Earnest Keys, who was murdered in a tragic case of mistaken identity. He was not the rival gang member Dawson thought he was. The state presented evidence of nearly 24 undercover drug purchases conducted in NLBS territory between April 2013 and June 2013. Besides the officers' testimonies, the jury viewed videos from several buys that were recorded. On March 29, 2013, law enforcement officers executed a search warrant at 4039 West Monroe Street's apartment building. Before the warrant execution, officers surveilled the area and saw NLBS member Corey Tagle selling crack cocaine to multiple individuals. The police apprehended the fourth buyer and seized 2 plastic bags with green dollar signs containing crack cocaine. While heading towards the apartment building for the warrant execution, officers noticed another NLBS member, Frank Wynn, running up the stairs. They followed Wynn into a second-floor apartment, where they observed him tossing a towel onto the floor. Following Wynn's arrest, officers recovered numerous packages of suspected drugs wrapped within the towel. In total, they confiscated 38 bags of supposed heroin and 184 bags of supposed crack cocaine, which later tested positive for a combined weight of 17.8 grams of cocaine. Additionally, the state introduced wiretap evidence indicating that between approximately 7:45 p.m. and 8:15 p.m. on May 30, 2013, Dawson engaged in phone conversations with an unidentified male and separately with a man named Bryle Elverton. During the calls, Dawson arranged for Elverton to pick up 27 or some shit like that near Frank's in exchange for an unspecified sum of money. Around 8:30 p.m., Elverton contacted Dawson again, informing him that he had completed the pickup and was heading towards the expressway. Following information received from officers monitoring Dawson's wiretaps regarding a potential drug transaction, Sergeant Charles Daly and Detective Michael Dyra located Elverton's van and conducted a traffic stop. While Detective Dyra talked to Elverton, Sergeant Daly discreetly retrieved a package containing 26.6 grams of heroin hidden inside Elverton's gas cap. By 8:40 p.m., Elverton notified Dawson about being stopped by the police. Elverton mentioned that the authorities searched his van but failed to locate the drugs as he had concealed them in the tank. Dawson responded, considering it a blessing, and instructed Elverton to return home. Video footage captured Elverton arriving at Dawson's home shortly afterward. Upon inspecting the van together, Dawson is shown making a phone call, which the wiretap revealed was to the same unidentified male from earlier. The unidentified male assured Dawson that he would contact someone to ensure everything was all right before calling Dawson back. When the unidentified male returned the call a few minutes later, he informed Dawson that the individual he contacted confirmed Elverton had picked up the package and hidden it in the gas tank. Dawson speculated that they were being monitored by the police. Further wiretap evidence unveiled a conversation on June 3, 2013, between a man named Ricky Caesar and Dawson. Caesar mentioned having to dispose of something as the police were attempting to enter his residence forcibly. Dawson advised Caesar to remain silent, switch off all devices, keep quiet, and lock the doors. The following day, undercover officers witnessed Caesar engaging in multiple drug deals in the 4000 block of West Monroe Street. During one incident, Caesar was seen accepting a substantial sum of money through a basement window and passing it to the driver of a maroon van. When the van was stopped by officers, Odum was identified as the driver, with Polk and Lemon as passengers. Later that day, Caesar was arrested outside Baba's restaurant with 48 plastic baggies containing a total of 17.3 grams of heroin. Despite his arrest, Caesar was released within hours. Upon his release, he contacted Dawson and recounted the events. Dawson insinuated that Caesar's release meant he was cooperating with the police. Although Caesar denied divulging any information, Dawson remained suspicious. Dawson advised Caesar to wait for him, indicating he would speak with him shortly. Subsequently, Dawson contacted an unidentified male to verify Caesar's arrest details and instructed them to stay put for the night, planning to regroup the following day. Officer Marcus Miles conducted 5 undercover heroin purchases between May 6 and June 5, 2013, at the property located at 4134 West Wilcox Street. During 3 of these transactions, Bobby Scott was identified as one of the sellers to Officer Miles. On June 13, 2013, Officer Gerald Lee and other officers arrived at 4134 West Wilcox Street to execute an arrest warrant for Scott. Although Scott was not present, law enforcement discovered 263.4 grams of heroin inside a bag, alongside a cutting agent on the coffee table in the living room. Scott was subsequently arrested by different officers. In the early morning hours of June 13, 2013, Dawson, Odum, Polk, and Lemon were all arrested following separate warrant executions at their residences. Detective David Greenwood, a member of the arresting team that apprehended Dawson, reported discovering 7.3 grams of heroin in Dawson's freezer, along with an empty Dorman bottle and capsules in his kitchen trash, with Dorman being commonly used as a cutting agent for narcotics. Additionally, various narcotics paraphernalia, including a digital scale, multiple plastic baggies, and a box containing sifting tools, scissors, brushes, spoons, measuring instruments, and more Dorman bottles, were found in Dawson's home. Officer Kevin Kilroy, who was involved in Polk's arrest, recovered plastic baggies, a grinder, and Dorman from a bag located in a bedroom closet. Sergeant Jose Lopez, another member of the search team, uncovered $1,900 in cash, a digital scale, more baggies, and 48.6 grams of crack cocaine. Detective Albert Y. Roba participated in Lemon's arrest, where authorities seized a grinder, 2 digital scales, several plastic baggies, and $910 in cash from Lemon's apartment. Detective George Lopez, alongside fellow officers, carried out Odum's arrest. In Odum's residence, officers discovered a scale, marijuana, small baggies, and $3,718 in cash. During an undercover operation on October 24, 2012, Officer Angela Pittman purchased 2 bags of crack cocaine from Spears in the 4100 block of West Wilcox Street, leading to Spears' subsequent arrest by Officer Scott Hall. Duavon Spears, Cornel Dawson, Antoine Davis, Clifton Lemon, and more than a dozen other men faced indictment on multiple charges as a result of the extensive investigation into the New Life Black Souls Street gang. On December 2, 2017, following 3 days of deliberation, the jury unanimously found Spears, Dawson, Davis, Lemon, Odum, and Polk guilty of racketeering conspiracy and criminal drug conspiracy. The jury determined that the murders of Snulligan and Taylor were part of the pattern of criminal activity related to the racketeering conspiracy for each defendant. Additionally, the jury concluded that certain unlawful deaths were reasonably foreseeable to each defendant during their involvement in the racketeering conspiracy. Regarding the criminal drug conspiracy charge, the jury found several specific acts to have been committed by a co-conspirator in furtherance of the conspiracy, such as possession and intent to deliver various amounts of cocaine and heroin on different dates. Each defendant was convicted on both counts and received multiple concurrent life sentences for racketeering conspiracy, in addition to a 40-year term for the criminal drug conspiracy.